I'm also recording this, guys. So, and those of you all that are working on a different activity over there in the corner, you guys, I can talk over you. It's fine. So as long as you're just working quietly, it's all good. So for number 1, I know this diagram makes it a little bit iffy. This right here is referring to that angle that's right there in the triangle. Okay. And then, of course, this angle is right here. So those two angles lie along a straight line. How many degrees is a straight line, mathematicians? 180. So, oh my goodness. So these two angles add up to 180. Why do they add up to 180? Because they lie along a straight line. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do to set up an equation. This is where we get to do algebra and why we reviewed 1-step and 2-step equations. Okay, so I'm going to set up an equation, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to account for this angle. So I'm going to say, so 5x plus 4. And then I'm going to add it to my second angle, which the second angle is x plus 8, right? So I'm going to set up an equation, 5x plus 4 plus x plus 8. And what should those add up to? They should add up to 180 degrees. So let's make sure we all understand where I got that equation from. So I took the first angle. Yes, sir, give me 2 seconds. So I took my first angle. I would definitely be typing this in there so you got an example to go by. So I took my first angle, which instead of it being an angle measurement, now we're in big kid math, so they're giving us variables. So 5x plus 4 is angle number 1, plus angle number 2 is x plus 8. And because they're on a straight line, we know that they need to add up to 180 degrees. So I would definitely make sure I'm typing this, that I got this somewhere for my reference. So my first question is, does it make sense where I got the equation from? Because those two angles are adding up to 180 degrees. So that's why I set it up the way that I did.
Is that a 5 or an S?
That is a 5. I will never use the letter, that's a great question. I will never use the letter S for a variable because my 5s do look like S's. So you can always be assured that is always a 5. Yes, dear?
Okay, so I think last year in Ms. V's class, what she taught us was you would add the equations together and get 6s plus 6x
Oh,
plus 5.
so you must be psychic. So hold on a second, because that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask, does the term combining like terms mean anything to you? Which is exactly what Charles is getting at. So, bro, you must be psychic. That was going to be my next question. Okay, so yes, right now there's a lot happening with this equation, right? It would be easier if it were more simple. So, Charles, correct me if I am saying something wrong that you just said. You said combine the 5x and the x, right? I agree. So if you have 5 x's, mathematicians, and then you add one more x, because there's technically a 1 in front of that x. So you had 5 x's, then you add another x to it. How many x's do you have altogether? 6. So I am going to combine those like terms. I'm going to combine the 5x and the x to make my equation a little bit more simple to work with. And then what else can I combine as well? I can also combine exactly the 4 and the 8 because those are numbers and numbers are like terms as well. So in order to make this a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to take my like terms. So I'm going to combine all my x's and combine my numbers. And now I have just a plain old 2-step equation that we were reviewing on your warm-up last week. So I want to pause for just a second and make sure we know where all those numbers came from and why now we just have this basic 2-step equation. So what's your goal? Now, I saw some people in a previous class doing this. First of all, I wrote it in red, which means what? Wrong. It's wrong, okay? So don't write it. Yeah, so what did they do wrong? Like, what does it look like that person did? Because they were like, oh, there's still more numbers that I can put together. Why can I not put that 12 and that 180 together?
Because 180 is the total amount of degrees of the 6x plus the 12. You can't add the 12 to the 180.
Right, they're on the wrong side of the equal sign, right? Yeah, so now instead of putting the 12 and the 180 together, now we just need to start canceling things out in order to get the variable isolated. So we've got a 6 that is sitting there with the x, and we've got a plus 12. My opinion, for what it's worth, is that it's easier to get rid of this one first. Kids just have a tendency to make fewer mistakes. So what's the opposite of plus 12? Negative 12. I was getting ready to say that weird. Or minus. Negative or minus means the same thing. Either way, you're taking away 12. But I have to be sure that I also take away 12 where? From the 180. Math is fair. If you take away 12 off of one side of the equal sign, you got to take it away from the other side as well. So I've got, first of all, those cancel, right? I still have 6 x's that I need to bring down. And 180 minus 12, Oscar is right, is 168. Now, how am I going to get rid of the 6, friends? What does it mean that the 6 is sitting next to the x? Is that add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Okay, so it's multiplication, but I know where your head's at, though, because you were thinking, how am I going to get rid of it? I'm going to get rid of it by dividing. You did what I have a tendency to do. I think of the answer, the next answer in my head, instead of the question that's being asked first. So if I remember in big kid math, we are now using a division symbol for division. A fraction symbol for division, not that baby division symbol. So once you get done with that division, somebody help me make sure I did this correct. 168 divided by 6 is it 20? I just lost it. 28?
Yes.
Thank you. So x is equal to 28. So you're using your angle relationships. You're using what you know about angles and what you know about solving equations, and you're combining it into one giant, putting all the information into one big problem kind of thing is what's happening here. I didn't do a great job of explaining that. So you're solving equations and applying your angle knowledge at the same time. Okay. Is there anybody that's not okay? I want to show you one more together as a whole group before I turn you loose to try and practice this on your own. Okay. Anybody not okay if I go to number 2? All right. So for number 2, so in number 1, those two angles added up to 180 degrees. Is that the same relationship that we have for these two angles? Do these two angles add up to 180? Because these are parallel lines.
No.
Yeah, so what's the angle relationship of those two angles, friends?
Corresponding.
Because both of them are like in the top, on top of the, because this tells you they're parallel, right? So now we've got to start thinking about interior angles, exterior angles. So these two angles aren't going to add up to 180. These two angles are congruent because they're corresponding. Yes, which does mean they are equal. So this time, to set up an equation, I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to set it up equal to 180. I'm going to set them up equal to each other. So let me show you what I mean. So you're going to do 6x plus 1 equals 67. Because this time, since they're corresponding angles, they're not congruent anymore. They're not supplementary anymore. Now they're the same. So you're going to set up your equation differently so that they're equal to each other. Now, the nice thing about this one, you don't have like terms to put together. You don't have to simplify it. It's already, you're all good to go. Now you just got to solve it. How am I going to get rid of that plus 1, friends? What's the inverse of a plus 1? Minus 1. And we're going to do it on both sides because that's how equations work. So the 1 will cancel. I'll bring down my 6x. 67 minus 1 is 66. And then how am I going to cancel out the 6?
We're going to divide it by 6.
I'm going to divide it, exactly. So x is equal to 11 degrees. So these are the two types that you're probably going to see. They'll get a little bit harder as you go through. They do get a little bit progressively more challenging, but I am here for you, okay? So you got to remember what you know about angle measurements and algebra all at the same time today. But you guys can handle it though.